I mean, we're so lucky. There's so much. I just want to show you how much there is in the canon of teachings that Yogi Bhajan left us by just giving you some teachings from one lecture that he gave. It actually wasn't a lecture, it was a panel discussion that he gave. And he was on a panel about sex and sexuality. And so just in this one kind of panel discussion, there's just so much. I mean, we could be here all weekend just with the teachings he gave. And, he gave 8,000 lectures. 4,000 to 5,000 of them had teachings in them. And this is an example of, he says something in this that he was writing a book. I'll read it to you. Because basically he kind of takes over the whole panel. First of all, he tells them all off. He tells the moderator off because she's trying to get into some discussion about sexual, misbehavior with, I'm guessing, maybe Yogi Amrit Desai, because it was in 1991 there was a big thing with this guy, Yogi Amrit Desai. Anybody know? It's more of a scandal, it's more East Coast kind of old school yogis. We have a couple, Nateshwar, who teaches the classic Hatha, who's an incredible Hatha master. He was married to Amrit Desai's daughter, but So basically, Yogi Amrit Desai was a student of Swami Kripalu, and they were, getting people out of their sexual dysfunction through celibacy. Which what they were doing is they were putting the women and the men in separate quarters, because it was ashram living. They were putting the women and the men in separate quarters, and then if there was kind of more of a union, a marriage of some sort, I'm not sure if illegal, but just some sort of more kind of committed arrangement, then they were allowed to have sex. But they weren't just, because they were yogis, he was trying to get them to kind of get out of the sexual dysfunction that way. Now, with Westerners, it doesn't really work very well. This whole it doesn't work with anyone, which I'm going to get into, the celibacy thing. But Westerners really get kind of a little grumpy, and everyone does. But definitely, we get grumpy about this, which is why Osho came and was like, "All right, everybody, just." Just go for it, because you're obsessed with it. You're neuroticizing about it. You're wasting all of your energy, just all the time thinking about it and doing it and not doing it. And do you want to do it? And does that person want to do it with you? And, just so much energy being wasted. So it was just go for it. Let's see if we can get it out of our systems. Now, as Westerners, all we heard was just go for it. So that's where the thing kind of got stuck, and then he passed, and there was no kind of heir to continue the evolution of kind of raising the thing from the lower chakras to the upper chakras. But his message was not just have sex for it. He was just saying to everybody, all right, we know celibacy doesn't work, so let's just, if we're gonna just be fixated on it, maybe let's just go for it and see if we can get it out of our system. But we couldn't get it out of our system. We are so funny. We're so cute. So we just love this. So I think this was during the scandal of the Yogi Amrit Desai scandal. Now this is a very pure kind of channel of yogic teachings. I could be wrong. They didn't say a name, but the moderator starts to get into the gossip about it. And kind of it was written up quite a bit because Amrit Desai had people living in, these quarters and being celibate. And then he himself came out that he had couple, kind of like a Gandhi vibe, couple young ladies helping him out. And I don't know if he was married as well. I'm not sure about those details. Was he married? I don't know either. There was just, some stuff going on. And so his students were very angry. Particularly, they were angry because they had to be celibate. My thought on it, this is my opinion. If they weren't having to be celibate and they weren't really grumpy because of it, they might have not cared that he was getting a little sensual massage, after a long day of teaching. They might have been all right, no probs. But I think they were mad because they were having to be celibate. They were a little grumpy about that. The pituitary gland wasn't secreting in the proper way, because that's what happens during celibacy, and people get really whacked out, i.e. the Catholic Church. Right, so we have some examples of when people are asked to, who are not, who don't have humans don't really, it's not in our makeup for the most part to be celibate for our whole lives. Certainly parts of it's a practice, but not for our whole lives. So we've seen how this dysfunction, it's actually a physiological dysfunction, that the pituitary gland starts to not secrete properly. And when it doesn't secrete properly, we cannot think properly. And if you've ever, because it's all biorhythms, and I'm sure we're all adults here, usually there's a bunch of children when I'm teaching about sex. That's, the children come for and the same, I don't feel as bad about it, because I found this lecture of Yogi Bhajan's where he's going on and on about sex, and it pans out and there are all these little kids, like really young kids, like 5, 6, 7 years old. So I feel better about it. But so usually there's like a lot of children here for the sex teachings, but we're all adults here. So you know that when you have kind of a buildup of sexual energy, and it's a biorhythm that's happening, and it's a biorhythm connected to the moon, and you are horny and you don't have sex, we've all had experiences where we don't think right. We do weird stuff. Then you add alcohol to it, and the liver goes out of functioning. It's very, very detrimental. I'm just letting you know. The way we have sex in the West is exactly opposite of the way that we are meant to have a powerful sexual encounter. First of all, you're not meant to have on a full stomach. So we go out on dates, we eat, and we drink alcohol. And then we have sex. It's literally the worst thing you can do, to have a full stomach and a liver having to process alcohol and then have sex. It's very detrimental to your ojas, to your sexual vitality in the long run. And then we have an epidemic of sexual dysfunction in our culture now. And part of that is very much part and parcel due to these sexual habits that are so depleting of the jing, of the life force, the chi, the G, that by the time we get into the mid-40s, mid-50s, that in that range, all of a sudden the sexual depletion starts to show up more and more. So we're not supposed to, as men, obviously have, we can only have like a virile kind of sexual appetite until somewhere in the mid-40s, 50s. That's kind of a Western thought. That's not true. Men who keep the ojas intact and do certain things, which we're going to be talking about over the weekend, one of them is after you ejaculate, men and women who are a part of that experience with the men, you want to make sure this happens, and it's a really beautiful thing to do for a man. He will love you a lot, which is you make sure he gets warm. So you like tucky in, like get the little blankie up the covers, because once a man's ejaculated, he needs to be warm so that he doesn't lose more kind of vitality. So you tuck him in, then you make sure he gets like hydrated. It's very good actually to have dates or some other natural sweet, fruit or dates, just a little bit after ejaculation. So he's warm under coveys, and then you get him like some dates and fruit. No, you do this I'm just telling the women, or anyone who likes to be with men, you do this to your male sexual partner after he's ejaculated. He will worship the ground you walk on forever. I mean, this is like true temple arts here. Bring him a plate of, with a plate of dates and mango, warm milk after ejaculation. It's good at like ojas. We don't really do that in the West, but if you warm a little milk with a little bit of honey, something like that, but just water will do as well. He gets hydrated again, and that's because the system is very sensitive after ejaculation. For women, this is why we are biochemically kind of constructed this way. It's our complaint that the men roll over and fall asleep, but they actually need to be wrapped up and warm and taken care of, as usual. And then, for us, as usual, we have to meditate. We have to like meditate, take a shower, make sure, we're everything is kind of moving, cleaning our system out, cleaning our mind out. It's not good for women to go directly to sleep after a deep sexual encounter. So, like, who knew? We don't know any of this stuff.